Hey there boys and girls, Lucky here and welcome back to another episode of NOOB to PRO, talking about the Awp this time around. There will also be a zoom sensitivity tutorial in the near future, however this is too long for this video, so just wait for that and I'll link it later down in the description down below here as well. Keep in mind, NOOB to PRO is always a 3-part series, meaning on Monday you'll always get a big tutorial video like this one. On Tuesday, me and my girlfriend will be streaming to answer more additional questions, and she will be showing the actual training routine in her stream to get better at the game. And on Sunday there might be a slight highlight video or something like that. But I'd say, let's get right into it. Alright, so you want to be a main Awp or play the Awp role right here in Counter-Strike Global Offensive using one of the most prestigious weapons in the game. So the very first and also most important role that you have to learn, or better said, thing to understand, is to learn the rifles first. I cannot stress this enough, but many people, especially below LEM, think that they're good Awpers, when in reality their rifling is just so bad that it makes like their Awping in comparison seem look good, because they don't know how to stutter step and they don't know how to control the recoil and stuff like that. Really, trust me, learn the rifles first. Every good Awper also needs to be able to rifle, and then you also need to play the pistols very well. You need to learn them as well, and after you learned how to play with those effectively to a good extent, then, and only then, you can pick up the Awp and try to become an Awper. So I'd say, let's get right into it. So the first point I already mentioned is using your Glock, or just in general, your pistol, in order to train your aim. Because the important thing about pistols, so let's just put a target right here. Pistols use point and click aim, meaning that you're just pointing somewhere and clicking. The reason for that is because, of course, they're semi-automatic, so you have to fire each shot. They're not fully automatic, meaning that you have to aim each shot. Same goes for the Awp, meaning that whenever you're trying to just increase your pistol aim, you're also subconsciously working on your Awp aim. So when you're trying to practice your aim with the Awp, it's not just always Awping. I mean, that's the primary thing you should be doing, but just using the pistol also helps as well. Now, we want to use a couple of commands right here in order to make our life a little bit easier. Right here we got SV_cheats1, which we will enable. And then we also got weapon_debug_spread_show_1. No underscore, just a space. So, now we also want to go into the options menu. We want to go to keyboard and mouse, I believe. No, to game settings it is. And then we want to switch to classic dynamic. So what we have right here is just basically a more advanced crosshair, you could say, that's always showing us the spread of weapons. So you can see when you're running with the Glock and firing, it's still somewhat accurate. Same goes for if we're like using, let's get another weapon like the Tech 9 right here. You can see even while running it's super accurate. That's why it's so overpowered. But anyhow, this will now show you the spread of the Awp. This right here is one of the reasons why you never will fire your Awp when you're just running around like this. You just simply won't be hitting anything. Even with no-scoping, you see, if you're just crouching, it becomes a little smaller and you can already like fairly decently hit targets if there's someone close range. Right here. You see, you would get like a 20 to 25% chance, I'd say, to hit the guy. So if you're extremely up close again, you see it's a lot better and no-scoping actually becomes viable. Now, something that many people do not understand, and they also blame like bad hit rec and stuff, is if we just fly over right here and just put a bot there and fly back. If we look at the target now, you can see the Awp, even at that range, has spread. So when you're hitting him right here, it's still possible for the bullet to just fly around him. So you always want to hit center of mass with the Awp, right here, where it's completely covered. None of the other things are able to hit like the outside model or the outside hit bubbles. Meaning that if you fire like this, you'll definitely hit him for sure. Now, another thing that I just saw, people talking about quickscoping. Quickscoping is not possible in CSGO. If you zoom in, you see the crosshair gap becomes smaller. So to some extent, it is viable. But just in general, it's just like it's taking too long. If you fire immediately after you're scoping in, you're not accurate. You see, that's like you aimed right here, the bullet is flying over here. Of course, if you're extremely up close, like right here, it works because it's just super close. But still, that's something you have to keep in mind. Also, again, if you're jumping, not a good idea with the Awp. So, once again, just remember that it's probably not the hit rec, but you can see the spread of the Awp is actually quite large for a scoped weapon. And even if you crouch down, you can still miss them if you're just like not completely on them or just dragging across them and he's head glitching or something, it's very easy still to miss the target like that. Now another thing with the AWP, especially if you're crouched down and moving, you can still completely accurately hit your target. You can see there's still some spread on it, but it's close enough in order to make like viable shots still. And again, I have like tons of AWP tutorials already, so I'll post all of them in the description down below, because there are many tips that I'll just be repeating right here, because I just talked so much stuff already about the AWP, so make sure to check them out as well. Now, another important thing is quick switching. So previously, quick switching basically enabled you, so if I'm firing right here, you can see it puts me back into the same zoom level. However, most of the time you would just want to fire, and then you want to like get out of there. You would just want to like fire and then go back to your weapon, so you don't have to get into the scope again. Previously, in other CS iterations, just firing, quick switching back to the knife or to another weapon and then to the AWP was faster than actually just firing like this and then again firing. However, that's not the case anymore. And even if you just like fire right away, so you can see fire, it still takes the zoom in time. And so the only benefit we're really getting is that, well, we're not in the scope anymore after we're quick switching, so we can basically fire and then we can just leave it like that. But besides that, there's no real like advantage to that anymore, so keep that in mind. And then again, you have one zoom level like this and also a second zoom level like this, and you pretty much want to be comfortable with the first zoom level at all ranges. And then if you're extremely long ranges, for example, like right here, if you're just holding an angle, you know, no one can flank you from right here because your teammates got that. You can just hold it right here with that zoom scope level. That's also viable. Just make sure to try to always use the first one as good as possible. Okay, now let's talk about positioning. So positioning is probably the most important thing about Awping, besides your usual just aiming around and trying to hit targets. The sad thing, however, again, is that positioning only really comes naturally by playing the game a lot and gaining lots of experience. So you want to know kind of the spots that are good for you, just which angle to hold, which angle to pick from, which angle to peek. Just in general, all of that comes by just playing the game and developing your game sense. I also made a video on that, so better check that out in case you're still, well, lacking with that. But it really just comes from experience, so sadly I cannot give you guys a super awesome tip to make it better. It's just like, try to remember the spots of the enemies and try to position yourself in a way where you're having the advantage, meaning that you can engage them in a long-range scenario like right here, so that you have the upper hand due to your scope and your wanted like kill potential. Meaning that when you're just rushing out like this, or just in general, if you, let's say you're smoking it off, like right here somewhere with like a smoke or something, and you try to push it over here, that's kind of bad positioning. Like, you can already see you're completely exposed, and you're actually closing in the distance to the target, meaning that the guy right here with an M4 will have an easier time, or maybe like a guy with pistols just holding right here and you're coming into his effective range, and that's not something you want to do. You want to kind of like, in that scenario, you're checking right here and then you're just right here and then there, and you want to see if you can kind of spot something in order to make like use of your range. That's basically the thing with the AWP. You want to make use of range. Of course you can use it close up, but just in general, if you set up a gunfight properly with your positioning, you can engage them in long range scenarios where you got the upper hand. Alrighty, since we're already in mid, let's talk about peeking. So do not forget, pay close attention to crosshairs. They're kind of blurry when we're zooming in. This is the same thing as we had before with the spread showing, meaning that when we're zooming in, like this, we have to wait until we're accurate, meaning that every time we're taking like an offensive peek trying to kill the guy right there, we're kind of at a disadvantage because we're just coming out and then zoom in and it takes time. We just have to complete many steps compared to a guy who's just holding like with an AK or something right here and just has to tap and he gets us. So we really gotta make use of the ping and the peeker's advantage, just the reaction time of the enemy player. And what we're essentially doing, like right here, they're aiming for headshot height. We want to, as soon as we're kind of coming out, want to crouch down to evade the headshot, meaning that if they're firing, they have to adjust down to the height, and then also for movement to the side, meaning that they have to adjust horizontally as well as vertically, which is the hardest thing to do. So in this scenario, we would just want to peek like this and get immediately to the spot right there. Now, the way we're doing or going about this is, we're moving at top speed or top moving speed with the AWP out, and then as soon as we're hitting the point of, well, where they would be able to see us, start to crouch and zoom in at the same time, because by the time we're completely crouched down, we can usually get off an accurate shot since we're crouched already and get like a good entry kill like that. So always make sure to be able to do the crouch peek pre-fire like this. And this is the only effective way to crouch peek. Some people are doing this. I now said before, you can be completely accurate while doing that, but if you're doing that, your model expands, you're like getting fatter, you're getting wider, meaning that guy, and everyone else on the map will see you if you're coming out right here before you are able to see them. No matter, like, if this guy has like 3 seconds reaction time, he'll still be able to see you before you're out. You're just too slow. Like, crouch walking with the AWP, you're just too slow. It doesn't make any sense, so definitely do not do that. Make sure to not do that. Alrighty, now let's talk about defensive AWPing, especially valuable on the CT side. So defensive AWPing is usually the role the AWP is designed for, meaning you're just posting yourself up at some point, like a vantage point, a choke point or somewhere, and you're just waiting for the enemies to run into your crosshair. So you got a couple of advantages by doing that. First of all, if you're already zoomed in, you don't have to wait for your scope to unblur, meaning that you're already completely accurate. Another thing as well is that you don't want to like hold very close, but just give yourself a little bit of space, meaning that you can do a reaction shot. So this also means you do not have to aim, you just wait for them to run to your crosshair and then you fire. Of course, if you haven't practiced this a lot, it might be a little hard in the beginning, so definitely try to learn that. Oh, bloody hell, what happened to you? So you can be more effective on the defensive side. And yeah, on the T side, you can do somewhat similar. Like I made a video about early AWP picks, and that's basically where this is coming into play, where you kind of being proactive, just running into mid, and you're just posting yourself up, like for example right here, for the guy crossing in mid. And the same thing applies, but this is more like, it's not really defensively, but it's also not really aggressively, so it's kind of somewhat in between, but you're still using a defensive tactic, but just holding a spot right here and just firing and getting off. So you're basically waiting, you're still waiting for them to run into your crosshair instead of just going for a pick. Alrighty, now let's talk about aggressive AWPing. So aggressive AWPing is kind of the, well, proactive style. So one example, the one that I showed in mid right here, is kind of proactive, but it's not really aggressive. It's kind of aggressive and defensive at the same time. A really aggressive pick would be if you're just coming around right here and you just want to go for a pick on the guy dropping down or just peeking right here. And being aggressive comes down a lot to, for example, being boosted up on mid on dust 2, or just knowing the timings and the points of engaging. So basically the first lines of sight where you're able to engage an enemy who's trying to peek you at the same time. And then at this point it really comes down to who's the better pre-fire, who has the better reflexes and aiming. So that's why aggressive AWPing is so hard. It's high risk, high reward, and can be really frustrating at times if you're just trying to go for that early pick or like pre-fire around here and there's just no one there, or even worse, you're doing it solo and they see, okay, he wasted his shot and then just rushing you down with Tech 9s. That's why you always want to have like someone holding your backstep or just somewhere else so you can effectively do your things and try to be a playmaker. And again, this can be kind of weird, just trying to do a quick pre-fire right here, but just in general, aggressive AWPing comes down a lot to pre-firing. So as I said before, you want to know the first lines of sight where both Ts and CTs are meeting each other and being able like to spot each other and to engage into the first gunfight. And those spots, it's kind of the same with like rifling when you're using an AK or, well, a Galil, I guess, in this scenario. You want to go for a headshot height and just pre-fire right here. And it's kind of the same with an AWP, but you're kind of using it more like a rifle, and it really makes it, it can make it viable. So that's why, like, defensive AWPing is always, but is often, more consistent and more reliable, since you're just waiting for someone to make a mistake and profit off of them, and even if they're not doing that, you're just holding your angle, meaning that they cannot, well, gain control of that part of the map. While aggressive AWPing, you're the playmaker, and you're trying to pre-fire the guy right here, and even if you're like at somewhat of a disadvantage, it can still work, but it's a lot harsher. It's kind of punishing you a lot more if it's failing, so make sure that you're kind of balancing it out. So this was kind of the Christmas episode of Noob to Pro, just kind of a quick in-between episode talking a little bit about the AWP right here, and I would highly encourage all of you guys to go down into the description and check out all the video links right there, because there's just so much more about the AWP that I just cannot simply cover in one video, especially since I already made like very good videos on the AWP. So if you want to be a better AWPer, meaning that you already mastered your rifles right here, of course, then just check out the links in the description down below and you should be good to go. As for Awp training, there's not much you can actually train. It's just playing a lot, like being, as I said before, knowing the lines of sight. You want to play lots of matchmaking or to get a feeling for it, or especially like retake servers to just know common spots and stuff like that. But in general, if you try to practice your AWP aim, it's just simple deathmatch, just point and click. And again, if you're just getting tired of just your usual point and click AWPing, you can mix it up with like pistol point and click, because you always want to zoom or best aim as good as possibly without the scoped in sensitivity right here, and then just do small adjustments in scope in order to hit a target. And then again, you also want to just in general like practice your pistoling in case you're just whiffing your shot and then you just have to tech 9 him down in order to still get the kill. So it's really just more deathmatch, use the AWP, and also do like pistol only deathmatch to practice your pistoling as well as your pistol aim, so meaning your point and click aim, which is essentially the same thing as with your AWPing. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and luckySkillFaker out.